Hello D&D people of the internet, it's me Max from Max's Miniature back with another video, and in today's video I'm going to show you guys how to make a D&D character in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. So, let's get into it. First off, I do want to apologize. It's been almost 3 weeks now since I last uploaded. That's due to a mixture of after-school activities and loading on of schoolwork. You see, I'm nearing the end of my semester, so we got lots of work for the teachers to cram in last minute. And it's been kind of stressful, with the combination of after-school band and cross-country practice, along with lots of homework. I've been finishing about 8 o'clock each night. When you finish that late, you kind of don't feel motivated to go make a D&D video. As sad as it sounds, at that point you just want to sit around and watch YouTube. You don't want to make a video. But I don't have a lot of homework today, so I'm setting aside some time for you guys. And I'm making you guys a video, because we make quality content here. Yeah. So, let's get right into it. So, making a character in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is rather easy and can really be boiled down to a 5-step process. It's kind of like making a pot of mac and cheese from a box. It's really easy to do. But, just like making a pot of mac and cheese, it's also really easy to mess up. For example, if you use sweetened milk instead of normal milk, or olive oil in replacement of butter, you're going to end up with a very different thing. And I'm speaking from experience. Mac and cheese tastes bad when you use the wrong ingredients. Same with D&D. D&D tastes bad when you use the wrong ingredients. Metaphorically, don't eat your paper and dice. Now, there's 4 materials you're going to need. These 4 basic ingredients they come in multi-different forms. And there's some cheap options, there's some expensive options, there's a little bit of everything, and there's even free options. So let's get into it. First off, gonna need a pencil, gonna need character sheet, gonna need random number generator, and you're gonna need some sources. I got my computer here. So, first off is pencils. Pencils are easy enough to come by. You can buy a dozen of them for $1. The dollar store, or Walmart, or wherever you go to pick up things. Pencils are easy enough to come by. Don't use pens. Only pencils. Even if you have a whiteout, no, don't. Because whiteout just slowly builds up. And if you're just going to be scratching things out with your pen, this is a pencil, but if you say this is a pen, and you're going to go just scratch your stuff out every time you got to update your HP or whatever, eventually you're going to have more pen ink and whiteout on your paper than actual paper. So use a pencil because you can erase very easily. Next up is character sheet. This is the standard 5th edition character sheet, 3 pages. Page number 1 is all the basic details. We're going to be mostly focusing on this one for today's episode. Page number 2 is all the little details, things like your height, your age, your eyes, different things like what you look like. There's a little spot where right here, this rectangle is for drawing what you look like. I like that. You just filling out, giving your character some flesh, along with noting some abilities. And then finally, the 3rd sheet. It's not very useful for some classes, but it's there for a lot of the classes. It's your spellcasting sheet. You list all your spells here, along with your ability to cast spells and the like. Next up, you're going to need random number generator. I got some dice here. Dice are pretty easy to come by. I mean, just go online, go to the local game store. Basic set of plastic dice usually costs anywhere between $7 and $10, sometimes more, sometimes less. You can buy the basic plastic ones. I'd recommend that for starting out. I own currently, I believe, 6 sets of basic plastic dice. Though you can also go buy expensive metal ones. You can buy giant plush ones. You can go buy some giant plastic ones. My brother has a set of those, and those are pretty cool. So yeah. Dice are pretty easy to come by, but if you don't have access to that, let's say you don't have a shop anywhere nearby, or you can't really go buy things off the internet, then drawing numbers from a hat always works. Drawing popsicle sticks from a cup always works. Those are a couple different options right there. Also, to the computer, there is random number generators on the internet, along with Google having a special tool called Roll-A-Die, where they've got built in, they got the D4, which is 4-sided die. When I say D something, that the number is how many sides the die has, and I assume D stands for dice. I haven't gotten confirmation of that. D4, D6, D8, D10, D12, D20. Google's got it all on Roll a Die. Go on to Google, search Roll a Die. There you go. And then sources, right onto the computer. Now, I don't own all the books, so for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to be using the computer to show everything. And whether you have books or computer or some other source, you just look it up, and there's sections of this creation process where you're just looking up something and writing it down. So yeah, those are the 4 basic materials. And with the 4 basic materials out of the way, we can get into our actual steps. So, step 1 of making a character starts in the top of the character sheet. We're talking about the first page of the basic character sheet, and we're focusing on the top thing. It's going to look something like this. This is going to be this lower part with the weird wavy line and the poorly drawn dragon. This is evidence of why this isn't an animating channel. I love people like Joe Cat and Dingo Doodles, but I'd never be able to do that. So this weird little wavy thing with the dragon goes on the left. I don't know if you can see that, but it's like here on the left. And my lighting is bad. And then on the right, you got these. So, we're talking about step 1, which is the concept. You want to know what your character is going to be from a gameplay perspective, from a roleplay perspective. You want a general idea of what their backstory is, and then you also want a name. So, let's think. How do we make a concept? Now, from my role-playing perspective, I like role-playing. I enjoy it. I'm not amazing at it, but I consider myself to be okay. Especially when I'm usually the dungeon master. I have to be pretty good at role-playing. Now, I'm not a Matt Mercer, but at the same time, I'm not a horrible war DM. So, I kind of know my way around it. And when it comes to role-playing, race is part of that. It's like the big thing. What your character looks like is going to be immediately judged by whoever they meet. So race is a big thing for me in D&D. Which is why I like to start by going into D&D Beyond, because they have an archive of literally every single legal race, and just scrolling through and thinking to myself, A, what have I not played? And B, what do I want to play right now? Usually I'll try to play something I haven't played before, but I found myself often replaying Turtle, because I like its abilities, and they're funny to play. Turtlemen are funny. So, for today's concept, I'm going to be making a gnome. Because why not? We're going to go with a gnome. So, see right there? Up in this section, I wrote, under race, gnome. That's my race. Now, with gnome, there are sub-races, so I decided I'm going to go with a forest gnome. And to mark that as forest gnome, I'm just going to put an F. Gnome F. I'm a forest gnome. So now we know that our gnome lived in the forest, and that they're a gnome. So we need to start coming up with classes. Now, pretty much any class could work for this, particularly illusion wizards, because gnomes, particularly forest gnomes, have innate illusion magic. But druid could also work, ranger, a fighter with an animal companion, so on and so forth. The list is long. But to keep it simple and straightforward, I'm just going to go with a druid. We're going to druid. Yeah, let's do druid. So, under class and level, where it says, I wrote class and LV, short for level. Some people write LVL, but LV is shorter, so I write LV. Under class and level, I'm going to write Druid LV1. Now, there are subclasses for classes just like there's sub-races, but I don't pick mine just yet because Druids pick theirs at level 2. Now, next up we want a basic backstory, because that's going to tie into our background along with our alignment. Before we get on to that real quickly, we got to do EXP, in other words, experience points, which is 0. Level 1 players start out with 0 XP points, and player name is my name, Max. So we're just going to put Max up there. Now, let's say my character was a gnome druid who lived in a happy little gnome village in the middle of the woods, until one day they were attacked by demons and he's one of the few survivors. He may be the only survivor. He hasn't met a survivor. And now he's just wandered the woods with his animal friends and only recently has entered an actual civilization and started a life as an adventurer. So with that in mind, what backgrounds might work? What immediately comes to mind for a person who's lived in the woods their lives is an outlander. Outlanders are the representation of the wild people you might meet in the woods who are either going to kill you because you entered their territory, or they're going to give you some food because you're hungry and cold. So let's go with outlander. Okay, next up is alignment. Alignment directly correlates with our race along with our character's experiences. Now, alignment is how you naturally react. Alignment consists of two words. First word responds to how you respond to order. The second word responds to how it goes along with order and then goodness. First off, you could be lawful, neutral, or chaotic for your first word. Now, lawful doesn't necessarily mean just follow the law. It could be that, but more often it's represented as your character has something they follow. They have a code, or they just live a repetitive lifestyle. For example, turtles are usually lawful because they live a continuous lifestyle of get up, eat food, go hunt, garden a bit, and go to sleep. So turtles are often lawful. For my character, they haven't really known law. They've known nature. They've known its primal chaos. Nature doesn't choose sides. And even though I just said chaos, I'm going to go with neutral. My character doesn't care for law or chaos. Now, chaos is the opposite side of law. If you're chaotic, that means you could care less about any solid structure to your life. You're just going to do what you do. And neutral's kind of in the middle. So we're going to go with neutral. Okay. Then we have the second word, which is good, neutral, or evil. Good means you go out of your way to do good things. For example, helping an old lady across the street. That is a good act. Expecting money out of it is kind of a neutral act. It's not necessarily evil, because you do have a right to expect money out of a service, but it's not necessarily a good thing for doing it out of your good heart. Then if you proceed to shank the lady in the side repeatedly with a knife, you're going on to evil, because if you helped her across the street, expected money, and then she says, I can't pay you, I don't have my wallet on me, and you proceed to stab her, that's committing an act of evil. Now, just because your character is a good character doesn't mean they can't commit acts of evil. But at the same time, you're going out of character, so do expect that your DM may persecute you for it. I've heard horror stories of DMs who have... There's someone going down my street on a motorcycle. Anyways, I've heard horror stories of people who have had their DMs take away their leveling up because they didn't play into their character's alignment. So, I do recommend that if your character is a neutral good, be a neutral good. And DMs, if your character is a neutral good character and has been acting that way, and then does one evil thing, like, I don't know, breaks a person's finger in an interrogation, I wouldn't say that that's a punishable offense, but if they say they're going to play a neutral good character and then proceed to break someone's finger every single time they meet them, then that's when you start saying, hey, maybe your alignment should change, or hey, maybe you shouldn't be in this group if you're going to be screwing up every encounter for the party. So, yeah, with that in mind, we're going to go with a good character. So, neutral good. This means that this character is just the embodiment of doing good things. It's the basics of it. And finally, we want a character's name. We're going to go with, Gimbly friend to all. He's a nice little gnome druid who makes friends with everyone, animals and people alike. So, that's the basics of how you make a concept. But now we have to actually move on to the statistical parts of what makes your character and what they're good at in step 2, the scores and the proficiencies. So, step 2 of character creation process focuses still on page number 1, focusing on this section. Right under where you put in your name, there's this area. And this consists of your scores, your proficiency, your inspiration, your saving throws, your skills, and your other proficiencies and languages. So this is all of it condensed and kind of shortened for my purposes, but there's some slight differences normally. Normally, proficiency bonus is under inspiration. These 3 scores are under these 3 scores down here. There's not 4 blank saving throws. There's a couple dozen fully written out saving throws and a giant list, but that would go off screen, and I still have to include the other proficiencies. So that's the basics of it. Now, all this half is fine and dandy, but we got to focus on this half first, or this third or quarter, and the rest of it here. So, these are your scores. These are going to mostly dictate what your character is good at doing. Now there's 6 different scores, 3 physical scores and 3 mental scores. So let's go over physical ones first. Strength is your ability to move things. It's how much you can lift. It's pretty much your ability to take this table that I've got off screen here and lift it up. Okay. Yeah. Dexterity is your ability to, let's say I throw the table at you. It's your ability to step out of the way. And Constitution is how stocky you are, how meaty you are, how much you can take. Let's say I take this table and I throw it at you. It's, instead of ducking out of the way, it's how well you could just stand there and go, ugh, and take it. So that's that. Next up, there's the mental scores. Intelligence is what you know. Now, how do I describe intelligence? Because it often gets mixed up with its counterpart, wisdom. Now, intelligence is knowing that while this is made up of effectively the same stuff as toilet paper, that intelligence is knowing that. Intelligence is knowing that this is just toilet paper in a different form. Wisdom is knowing that even though this is effectively just toilet paper, just less fuzzy, that you shouldn't wipe your bottom with it. Normal paper is painful, toilet paper is specifically designed to feel nice. So, there you go. Intelligence is your ability to know, okay, this is equivalent to toilet paper, and wisdom is your ability to know this actually isn't equivalent to toilet paper. And finally, there's charisma, your people skills. How well you can get around with people, how well you can talk to them, how well you can explain to them, how well you can convince them, how well you can deceive them. There you have it. Now, to calculate scores, you're going to need your random number generators. However you do it, you're going to need a 6, a way to randomly generate a number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. I've got a 6-sided die. You're going to need 4 of them. What you're going to do is you're going to randomly generate a 6 4 times. So now I'm down to 3 6-sided die. So I'm going to roll these 3. Okay. I'm going to roll the 1, 3 again. Okay. Okay. So I ended up rolling a 6, a 6, a 5, and a 2. That's really nice. Now what you do is you remove the lowest number. So I remove the 2 and then add up the other 3. That's going to be a 6, 6, and a 5. 6, 6, 5 added together. That's going to be 17. 17 is a really good number. 18 is also very good, but 17 is very nice. Very, very nice. So, where's my chalk? Here's my chalk. 17, I'm going to decide to put in wisdom. Wisdom is very important for druids because that's how their magic is based. So 17 is going to go here. So with 17 in my wisdom spot, I'm going to do the rest of the rolling off screen because it's boring as all heck to watch, and I'll get back to you guys in a sec. So I'm back after calculating all the scores, and I've got them all written here. We've got a 13 in strength, a 14 in dexterity, a 16 in constitution, an 8 in intelligence, a 17 in wisdom, and an 11 in charisma. Now, I want to point out, rolling dice is not the only way to calculate your scores. There's two other methods. Dice is nice because it has randomness. While you have the chance of rolling abysmal scores like 3, you also have the chance of rolling amazing scores like 18. Now, the other two formats are much more precise, where you definitely know that you're going to get what you want, but you're not necessarily going to get very high numbers. I prefer rolling because it makes D&D feel less like a video game and more like something totally random and really fun. So, first off, there's point buy, which you start out with all 8s in all your scores, and you have a pool of 27 points. You can put a point to an 8 to increase it to a 9, a 10, an 11, and a 13. If you're going to increase it to 14 or 15, you have to spend 2 points. That's the basic of point buy, and you can't exceed 15. You also can't go below 8. So, while you're not going to be getting abysmal things like 3, you're not going to get amazing things like 18. Then there's standard array, which is just a very specific point buy that gives you 6 scores that are all preset, and you can just put them anywhere. So it's just a very specific point buy. So that's point buy. This is rolling, and that's standard array. And I just rolled, so now we got to actually calculate the ability score modifiers. Now, the scores by themselves are not all that important. It's the modifiers that really count. But before we get into the modifiers, I have to really quickly go over racial bonuses. Now, certain races are innately good at certain things, so you get pluses from different races. For example, gnomes are innately intelligent. They get a +2 to intelligence, and then being a forest gnome, you're innately dexterous, so you get a +1 of dexterity. Of course, with Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, there's new updated rules, so there's a bunch of new crazy stuff that happens, and you can change up things and do a bunch of new things. But for this video, I'm just going to use the basic additives, which is a +1 to dexterity and a +1 to intelligence. So, that takes my 14 in dexterity to a 15, and my 8 in intelligence to a 10. Now, for some thought to give to these numbers, you're probably going, what does a 10 mean? What does a 20 mean? Why can't I go above 15 with point buy? Because point buy is meant to be the balanced version. There's lots of questions, okay? I answered that one. That one's pretty straightforward. And the numbers are confusing. At first I was all, well, what? Huh? What do they mean in real terms? Well, to give you some perspective, a 10's average. Got a 10, you're an average person. You're an average Joe. Now, there's ability score modifiers. These are the actual important bits. These are used every so often, but the ability score modifier is going to dictate almost everything. So, to calculate modifiers, you take your number, let's start with our constitution, 16. You subtract 10, 6. And then you divide by 2, 3. That's your number. Plus 3. And we put it in the little circle below the main number. And if you put the positive one up here, and put the ability score modifier up here, and the actual score down here, you're a psychopath. But you do you. So, I'm going to real quickly go through and do every single one of these, because I've memorized all these by heart, because I've played for a long time. So, there you have it. I my character so far is average when it comes to people skills, average when it comes to book smarts, and he exceeds in the areas of dexterity, in other words, how fast he can move, and how street smart he is, in other words, wisdom, and he's above average slightly when it comes to how strong he is. So with those in mind, now we got to go through and do these. So, these are your saving throws. Pretty much, whenever you drink a glass of wine and it's got poison in it, you got to roll a Constitution saving throw to see if you die or not. If your wizard friend shoots a fireball and you're in the middle of it, you got to roll a Dexterity saving throw to see if you're hit or not. That's the basics of it. So, being that I am a Druid, I am proficient in Wisdom and Intelligence saving throws, giving me pluses in these two skills. Now, what do you mean by a plus? Well, by a plus I mean my Proficiency Bonus. My Proficiency Bonus goes up here and is dependent upon my level. At a level 1, you have a +2 to your Proficiency Bonus. Proficiency Bonus is used for a bunch of different things, particularly adding to skills or saving throws that you're good at doing, and also adding to different, pretty much, you can't wear armor and cast spells if you're not proficient with the armor, and whenever you go to hit something, you get to add your Proficiency Bonus to hit it with if you're proficient with the weapon. For example, Druids are proficient with scimitars, meaning they're better at hitting things with a scimitar, whereas they're not proficient with a glaive. So if they try to hit something with a glaive, they're not going to do as well, whereas if they hit it with a scimitar, they're going to be better at hitting it. So let's go through. Real quick. Strength, +1. Dex, +2. Constitution, +3. Intelligence, it's a +2 and a +0, so it's a +2. Wisdom is a +2 and a +3, so it's a +5. And Charisma is a +0 and a +2, so it's +2. And there you have it. Next up, we're going to have the skills. Now, skills are built upon what your character is good at doing, depending upon your class and your background, and sometimes your race. Now, gnomes don't get any innate skill proficiencies. Outlanders give us, we get athletics and survival. So, to make this short, I'm going to write ATH for ath, and I'm going to write SUR for survival. So, if I had the full list here, I would fill in the dot, marking that I'm proficient, and then I would go right in the corresponding number with proficiency bonus. Each one of these skills has to do with a specific ability. One of these. Athletics, as you may have guessed, is a strength-based ability. Acrobatics is its dexterity counterpart. So, athletics being a strength-based ability, I get to add my proficiency and +1. So for a total of +3 in athletics. Now, this is for if I'm falling down off a cliff and I want to grab onto a branch, I'm going to roll an athletics check. Survival is a wisdom-based ability, which is good because I'm good at wisdom. I have a +2 and a +3 for a +5 in survival. Survival is the kind of thing I'm going to use if I'm looking for animal prints in the woods. Next up, Druid, I'm going to pull up my scores, gives us a wide array of customization options. We get to choose 2 from a list of Arcana, Animal Handling, Insight, Medicine, Nature, Perception, Religion, and Survival. A lot of things there. So I'm going to make this simple for you. There's a couple things that are better than others, and there's a couple things that are worse than others. For example, Arcana is almost never used. Medicine is used periodically, Nature is almost never used, and so is Religion. If you're going to pick those, you're going to be picking them for mostly roleplay purposes. I already have Survival for my background, so I'm going to start by picking Perception. Perception is going to allow me to see things better. It's a wisdom-based ability, so I'm going to add my wisdom along with my proficiency bonus for a +5 and perception. So, perception is, for example, if someone's trying to sneak past me, I would roll a perception check, a d20, plus my perception, to see if my perception roll is higher than their dexterity roll. And if I'm higher, I notice them. If they're higher, they sneak past me. And fill that dot in. And finally, something else useful is going to be animal handling. I'm just going to title that with AH. And that again is a wisdom-based ability. So I'm going to take my wisdom plus my proficiency bonus, add that together. That's going to be a +5. Now, each skill in the long list is still there. I would normally have a massive list, and every single skill, just because I'm not proficient in it, doesn't mean I can't do it. For example, medicine. Just because I didn't choose that I'm proficient in it, it's a wisdom-based skill, so I'm still, being a wisdom person, having lots of wisdom, I can still innately do some medicine. Just because I'm not proficient in it doesn't mean that I don't have it. Don't let this lead you astray. I was just having this to write out basic things. And then we get to the other proficiencies in languages. Now, let's start with languages. Being a gnome, I get common and gnome. Now, of course, I'm just using abbreviations for these. But of course, if you're playing in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything rules, you can choose your own languages. You don't have to pick these. So yeah. Unless, of course, there's a physical disability where your character can't speak specific languages, and your DM might say no. So yeah. Next up, our background allows us to choose one language of our type, and to go with our backstory, I'm going to pick out Abyssal, because my character had his entire tribe slaughtered by demons, so he wants to go kill some demons. And of course, if you're going to kill something really well, you gotta know thy enemy. So, Abyssal. Abyssal's language of demons, if you didn't know. So yeah, just abbreviated, Abyssal. Next up, you have some basic proficiencies. Now, from Outlander, our background first off, we get a musical instrument. So I'm going to pick the kettle drums. Let's go with the kettle drums. Yeah. I doubt I'm ever going to have access to kettle drums in D&D, but if we ever do, I've got proficiency in them so I can play them. Next up, no more proficiencies from my background. As for Druid, Druid gives me proficiencies in a bunch of things. I'm not going to write this all out, I'm just going to real quickly say it. I get proficiency in light armor, medium armor, and shields, meaning I can wear all of these and carry all of them and still cast spells. So that's an upside. Though one downside of the Druid is I'm not allowed to wear anything that's made out of metal. Because of lore reasons. Druids can't use metal because it's a thing of society. Next up, my weapons I can use are clubs, daggers, darts, javelins, maces, quarterstaffs, scimitars, sickles, slings, and spears. They couldn't just say simple weapons with a couple extras. Nope, they had to list out specific weapons that I can use. What game you playing, Wizards of the Coast? I'm not going to take the time to list this all out. So anyways, then there's Herbalism Kit. I get Herbalism Kit. That's the basics of it. And finally, one thing I forgot to write down here was your passive wisdom/perception, which is 10, plus your wisdom modifier, plus proficiency if you're proficient in wisdom, plus your proficiency a second time if you're proficient in perception. So for my character, I have a +3 in wisdom, plus a +2 for being proficient in wisdom, plus another +2 for being proficient in perception, for a total of a +17 in my passive perception. In other words, that's just my innate ability. If my character's just sitting in the woods, it's how well I can just notice if somebody's sneaking up on me without actively looking. So, for example, if I'm specifically standing guard and just staring into the woods, then I would be actively rolling a perception check. Because I'm actively looking for anyone trying to sneak up on me. But if I'm just casually sitting there, just eating a sandwich, then a 17 is the innate number that somebody has to roll higher than to sneak up on me. So there you have it. That's the basic rules of your scores and your skills and your proficiencies. So let's move on to the next step, which actually dictates what you can do in combat. So, hey D&D people of the internet, I gotta real quickly say, I'm looking at this while editing, and I've decided that, holy smokeroonies, it's turned into a long video. So I've decided I'm gonna split this into a two-parter, because I don't want to bore you guys to death. So yeah, if you enjoyed the video, please consider liking, subscribing, sharing with a couple friends, and commenting about what you want to see in the future. So, thank you for watching. Till next time, this has been Max from Max's Miniature. I'll see you guys in the next video.